job. Again, welcome everyone to the call for July and August. I'm glad you could take the time to join us. I will try to talk fast, which I know is never really my problem, and I'll try to stay on point. I know that is typically my problem. As many of you saw, the Olympics are going on. Very exciting time for someone like myself. I chose a very bad time to get rid of television and cable, so I've had to get creative watching it online, which has caused a little bit of a headache, but it's been really fun. I don't know if you guys are fans of it or not, but I think it's a pretty cool thing. Like the summer games much more than the winter games, despite being in Utah where we hosted the winter games. So hopefully everyone is enjoying themselves. In the background, you see that I have the new DNA on there, which we'll talk about in a second. I am going to, as always, going to start with a joke. We are in the midst of political season. I am not going to give my own political commentary. If you wish to discuss it, please reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to. But I think most of us can agree that politicians on a whole are open to ridicule. So there's a generic one for you. Okay, I'm going to go right back onto that DNA. As I mention every time, hopefully this isn't the first time that you have seen this DNA. If it is, then we have a bigger problem we need to talk about. But this is the new revised Horizon DNA, and it is INSPECT, which, as you can see, stands for impactful, nimble, selfless, passionate, ethical, curious, and teammates. I always take one of these points and try to highlight it and talk a little bit about it on the beginning of the call. This month, I am going to talk about selfless. You can see those 3 points there, the selfless points. Number 1, make time to help your colleagues, have a team-first attitude. Number 2, work towards what is best for Horizon rather than best for yourself. And number 3, remove your ego. Sharing knowledge and skills benefits everybody. Along those lines, I want to share a quote that I found by Ronald Reagan, former President of the United States. It's not very clear, which I'm not a big fan of. Don't know if that makes it worse or better, but it says, "We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone." I really, really like that quote. Everyone has heard of the golden rule. There's a lot of different variations. And no, I'm not talking about the whoever makes the gold makes the rules. I'm talking about the more traditional treat others the way you would like to be treated, or a variation on that, because I think it goes right into the selfless. There's going to be times in your professional and probably personal life where you know nothing about something. You know some things about something. You know a lot about something, or you know close to everything about something. Helping others move along that path and progress is a great thing, because somebody has probably had to do that for you or will have to do that to you in the future. So always keep that in mind. And as weird as it is, you can actually have a selfish reason for being selfless. What I mean by that is training others and involving others actually can make your job easier in the long run. So it's kind of self-serving. So as weird as that sounds, being selfless can actually be selfish because it helps you long term. Especially in your job as you interact with office people. Educating them to processes can save you a lot of problems down the road. I would say leasing managers probably have this more than anybody else. I know we have a variety of people on the call, but any time that you have anything in your position that you can help pass along is good. We've seen it time and time again where we've had people in positions had to take leave, for maternity leave, or because something unexpected comes up, and other people are able to seamlessly fill in behind them because they have a lot of knowledge that has been passed on. So really want to emphasize that point, being selfless. I think it's a big part of our company's success, a big part of my personal success, and I would bet if you looked at a big part of each of your successes personally and professionally as well. So I'm going to take my step off that soapbox on that point, and I'm going to go right into the housekeeping. For those that were on the call at the very beginning, I mentioned that this section will probably be a little bit longer than normal because we're covering 2 months. I'm going to go back to my standard starting point, which is help desk. I think we've made great strides as a company to utilize help desk when you have a help desk question rather than calling or messaging. But I do want to continue to push that as your primary means of opening a ticket. Just like we mentioned before, the details are very important. I can't tell you how many tickets I continue to get that have a request, but they do not have the correct information or the relevant information. And what it does is it creates a lot of delay where Jessica and myself have to try and track down that information. And some of those tickets can end up being open 3 or 4 times longer because there's a lot of back and forth. I had an example during my busy week last week where somebody brought something to my attention. I asked for an example and they said, anyone. Well, that doesn't really help me. So I had to then say, okay, well, please pick one. They picked one, then they didn't give me the details of what they were looking for. And so it ended up really dragging out. So please, each of you has spoken to me. I'm a little bit simple-minded, so act like you're talking to a child. Give all the information that you think might even be redundant. Name, apartment number, what you're looking for in the end result, charges, dates, anything that's in the system is good to have. If it's extra and we don't need it, it doesn't hurt anything to tell us. So take the time to give it to us and it can speed it up. We're reviewing our help desk process currently, making some small changes on the back end for September. Nothing that will be negative for you guys. Actually, it should make it better, including some of our follow-up procedures. So kind of keep an eye on that. If you at any point you have any feedback about help desk, please reach out to me directly. I'm always welcome to it, as long as it's positive. If it's negative, keep it to yourself. Just kidding. Let me know so we can always get better. Going on to the next thing, from kind of building up the help desk though, just so that you guys have a little bit of an idea of what the numbers are. Between August 1st and August 5th, help desk had 195 tickets. So that's for a 5-day period, and that is a busier time. That's a lot of our student move-in times or billing times. So we had a lot of tickets. Jessica and myself were working full-time on help desk last week. So having 2 bodies do it full-time and we were still fairly behind gives you an idea of why it's important to submit tickets the correct way, so that we can try to address them as quickly as possible. That number is a little high, and that does not include the tickets we had, which we had a lot of them, where they came in and they actually had anywhere between 5 items on one ticket, or several that had 40 items on one ticket. And that also doesn't count direct phone calls, messaging, etc. But it lets you know a little bit of what the workflow during a busy time for help desk can be. So we appreciate your patience as we kind of work through those and try to get through all of them at once as quickly as we can. All right, the next thing I want to get into, I have a little bit of an Entrata list, and then I have some general stuff, and then I have something for RealPage. So I'll start with Entrata. Entrata FMOs, which are final statements. One thing we want to look at doing is, as you're doing your final charges, potentially charging them on the ledger before you actually start the FMO process. The reason for this is oftentimes when you revise or reverse an FMO and then go back in there after entering a payment or something, those original charges don't automatically appear. And so a lot of times we're missing it and forgetting to rebill things, and suddenly somebody goes from owing $500 to getting a $200 refund. And we don't necessarily catch it until the check has been cut, and then we're having to try to make sure that we can cancel the check quickly, which costs us money, and redo everything. So if you can explore that and see if it's going to work for you, that's what we would suggest. Again, trying to do the billing on the ledger prior to the FMO, so that any things that you do on the FMO do not impact those charges. It's a big thing that we've seen the last few months. The next thing are Entrata credit card payment acceptance. Mark, are you out there?
Yeah.
All right. I know you kind of created some stuff for us. I know you don't want to go into too much detail, but you want to talk for a second on what that is?
Well, I know that there was an instance at King's where a resident was upset with the convenience fees for credit cards that we were accepting through Entrata, and within that process we had to go document how the fees work and which ones are legal and which ones aren't, and what the transaction cycle looks like. And so we put this frequently asked questions up on the Horizon Wiki page, so if any of you come across a resident that wants to know more about how that's working, there's some documentation for you guys out there. And I think the only big training item or item to note is to make sure that you guys understand that when convenience fees are illegal is when we're entering them, when it's not a convenience, when it's not being entered through the system directly by the resident or through a telephone entry. So make sure that you're having them enter their own credit card information through their resident portal as a technicality for what's legal and what's illegal. But yeah, so that's out there, Verizon Wiki. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Mark. So you can see on my screen, I have it pulled up. It's what it would look like as well. It is online on the wiki page. I do want to emphasize that the Entrata, one of the benefits of Entrata, if we haven't harped on it enough, is the increased payment options. Some people don't like that. Oh, suddenly it seems like the fees are a little higher. Well, we are suddenly actually following state laws and national laws, so that's part of it. And also, it gives us more options to provide the residents. So it is a good thing. So thank you, Mark, for doing that. This is going to be very valuable. If you have any difficulty finding it, let me know, and I can help direct you, or at least provide you this Word document I have, which is the same thing. All right, takes us into the next thing. Resident Portal, we've been seeing this as people have been applying. A lot of times in Entrata, people are applying online. They apply online, which creates their prospect portal. They get, an apartment, or they pay their fees, and they suddenly become a future resident, and they automatically have their resident portal created right there. It's a seamless process, and it's great. But what we're seeing is a lot of times if people are coming in the office, and someone in the office is actually creating entering their information to create a guest card or something of that nature, and creating a prospect portal for them, it does not automatically carry over and create a resident portal. They are then having to go back and do that. And we have verified that that is the intended functionality. So just a reminder, whenever possible, if somebody's coming into the office to apply, if you have an iPad, have them apply using the iPad, or walk over to one of the kiosks if you have them, or a computer, have them fill out the information so that it'll save them a step later on, so that their prospect portal will automatically become their resident portal rather than them having to go back and do it a second time. So that is something that we've seen pop up quite a bit recently. Entrata other income handling. If any of the Entrata sites have items that they rent to non-residents, such as storage units or garages, I know Avanti does it, I know Kook Housing does it, and there's a few others, Union for parking. You currently are having to create an other income account for that person and attach the rentable item. Well, other income accounts are not as robust as standard residents, so you can really only move them out. There's no doing a final statement. There's no sending them to collections through integration. And so as it's come up, we've just decided that what you need to do, and you can reach out to me if you need this kind of clarified, is that as soon as you have an account that's done, if there's an amount owing, it's not zeroed out, then you need to print and save the ledger so that you can send that to collections if you need to. And then you can also enter a credit to the outstanding charges to zero it out. So if an account has a $20 storage charge, you can enter a credit, I don't know what I just said, $20. So if there's a $20 storage charge, you can enter a credit to that same charge code storage for $20 to zero it out. We want to do that, not reverse it, because we want to show what it is. We want to put the description as a collection write-off. And then later, if they pay, you can add the charge back on and then enter the charge. It's a little bit more of a manual work, but it's what we need to do now until the other income accounts can get a little more robust. Luckily, it's not a major issue, but it has come up on a few. Last thing for Entrata, I promise, and then we're going to move on to the next part, is other leases. Now, some of you may or may not have seen this before. When you have, with our student sites in particular, a lot of times we'll have guarantors or cosigners that will want to pay for multiple units, or they'll want to be involved in two different accounts. Well, if they're attached to one, they can't obviously be attached to another, because it will say, this email address is already in use. What you can do is go under lease inside one of the accounts and other leases and actually link them together. So as you can see, this is 213A. That's actually now been linked to 213B. So what that does is if I go into the residence account, I can go to make a payment, and it now gives me the option of which one I'm trying to make a payment for. Very, very valuable for guarantors and cosigners that are making a payment for multiple people. So it's a really cool feature that we're trying to get more of our sites to use. That is the last Entrata specific thing. The next thing is more of a general question, general thing, which is skips. We're seeing this happen quite a bit where we are missing skips, where skips will happen and we don't know that they've moved out. We're moving them out very, very, very late. It's creating problems with big bad debt. Like, we should be walking units every single day. That is our policy. You need to make sure that you're walking, or maintenance is walking, to check for occupancy every single day on skips, or people that are delinquent, or you're even in eviction. Just because they're in eviction doesn't mean we're not supposed to be checking occupancy and moving them out the moment we know they're no longer in the unit. So please, that will really help get your bad debt down. And not only that, it is the correct procedure. So please work on that. Jessica asked a question. I don't know if it's meant to be for just me, but it's about that Word document about credit cards. Is it for HRA eyes only? I'll have to get back to you. I don't know. I haven't looked at it in great detail. I know what's on it, but I don't know if Mark has anything that might be considered sensitive. So I will let you know. The next part before I turn the remaining of our time over to our guest speaker is actually for RealPage. So RealPage people, you are not forgotten, though it probably seems like you get forgotten a lot. RealPage payments. Anytime a payment is created by a resident themselves, they're actually setting up most of the criteria for when that payment's going to occur, the amount, how long it will last. Most people seem to get it right where it will end when their lease ends. We have seen a larger amount do it incorrectly, where their payments continue after they're moving out, and then they're mad with at us for that happening. So please, if you're moving somebody out, or if you know they have a charge set up when you move them out, just take a quick look at the charges or the payments to make sure that those payments have been set to stop. They've been disabled. We really don't want to upset people needlessly, and this is one of the ways. Just doing a quick check and make sure that we're not taking money from them after they moved out. It isn't necessarily our mistake in the beginning, but good customer service is, leads us to try to avoid that going forward. So RealPage people, please check any pre-set up payments when you're moving people out to make sure that those have been disabled. Okay, I apologize for the longer list this month. We have one last thing before I'm going to turn you loose, and that is Audrey, one of our account manager extraordinaires in Texas. She's graciously agreed to talk to us. I gave her a very broad view. It was maintaining good customer service and relationships while upholding policies, because that seems to be something that we've all been getting feedback on, is that sometimes it's hard to not want to waive everything. How do I have good customer service but still uphold the policies? So she's going to talk about that for a bit. Audrey, are you out there? I think you are. You might just be muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Do you want me to pull up that document you sent me and put it on the screen?
Sure. That's absolutely fine.
All right. So I turn the time over to you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Audrey from C-Market, and Clint asked me to speak about this whole maintaining great relationships but still collecting late fees. So I just wanted to go ahead and kind of share with you how I do it down here. I know as account managers we all have our own processes, and I get that. But here I just wanted to share what seems to be working for us. So basically, you can probably read it as I go, and you might finish before I do, but every August I start brand new with every new person. So that gets me excited that I get a clean slate. With everybody on my team, we always want to make sure that we set the tone early for what we do accept and what we don't accept, and try not to give too much wiggle room, because people will definitely hang on to that on every occasion that they can. From the beginning, we always have open communication. My main thing is my staff is the reason I feel like we as a team are so successful, because we kind of train them and utilize them as a first point of contact to help implement the policies. And my saying is, if we're all in the same boat, we all float. I know that's kind of corny, but that's just how I feel, because I sometimes want to do it all on my own. But I have to remind myself that, I'm part of a team and we all have each other's backs, and I don't have to do it by myself. And it's also important that we all remain on the same page and maintain that united front. Because if the residents are hearing first and foremost from their first point of contact what our policy is, in a nice way, of course, then they're more inept to follow, believe it, and not feel like we're just gonna, let them slide. And while our team is constantly, implementing these policies, they're also letting them know, giving them my email so that they can always come and, reach out to me for questions or trying to tell me their stories as to why they're late. But at the same time, while we do that, we don't ever want to give them false hope, like, oh yeah, she's going to waive them, because then they become angry. So we let them know, you know what, go ahead and pay. Email Audrey if you need to, and she will research it. We can't make any promises, but at least you can reach out. And that tends to work well for us. And also, the big thing is that we try to maintain a sense of respect. While sometimes, it can get overwhelming because we hear the same things all the time. We have to remember, these are residents, especially in student housing, where I get a phone call from a parent every 5 minutes after I get off the phone with a resident. We still have to maintain, remember that they're adults, and we have to treat them that way. And I definitely try to keep a level playing field and hold each resident to the same requirements. And even though I have residents that come in and sit in my office for hours telling me about their life stories, I still don't play favorites, because when you do, it always comes back to bite you. I've learned that over and over again. And so I just stopped doing that. And it's just a good practice just to not make exceptions. And plus, residents do talk, and if you do it for one, you have to do it for all. And I know we all know this because we all do the same thing, but so making exceptions, like I said, I don't do, and I try to be fair. I do, though, however, sometimes consider waiving late fees, but it has to be like something on our end or in Trada's end or, one site or whatever. That's when I'll look into it and we will waive them. Or if something major in life happens, things like, just sad things or bad things, we'll definitely consider. And the only time that I ever really have to waive a late fee is if Marissa makes me. And we giggle about this because she's the one who will have to tell me to waive a late fee, because I do not like to waive late fees. But I will, in those other two instances. And then I try to remain clear constantly, on where we stand, not to make them feel like we're going to wiggle, but at the same time let them know that, we always want to offer them the empathy. And I find myself constantly in emails or, speaking with them, just letting them know that we understand that things do arise, but then I always let them know, that unfortunately, we have an obligation to our lease, as do they. And I know we all hear these all the time. I hear these every month. For the past 10, 12 years, I hear these every month. But I have to remember that this particular resident doesn't know that I hear this every month, so I have to pretend that I've never heard it in my life. And so it's that I forgot, that I didn't have time. I was busy. I was studying finals, or I was out of town. And I honestly hear these every month of my life. And so there's no way that I would ever consider waiving a late fee for these instances, because if you do it once, they're going to expect it the next time, and they're going to think that, oh, it's okay because I forgot. And what I find very helpful, too, is that if we help the resident have an understanding, and I try to refer back to the lease as often as I can to let them know that each resident we have to hold to the same requirements, and we can't make those exceptions. And a lot of times they get it, they just want to hear it, and they just want to see what we're going to do. But if we, remain firm in our stance, but help them understand, it makes it easier. And then, of course, as it states here, I'm a rule follower, and it definitely makes me nervous to break rules. So I try not to waive too many late fees, because that's not what we're here for, to waive the late fees. And having that clear policy in place, and having HRA, have their stance, with the late fee policies, it gives me the confidence to put into place what I need to, knowing that will be backed up by Horizon. So that's basically it.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I was typing.
Okay.
I appreciate that. I laughed a few times. You probably couldn't hear me because I was muted. Thank you very much. That was a lot of great information. Someone asked if we can send this out. Once I convert this and upload to YouTube, I'm going to send the file of this call, as well as this awesome document prepared by Audrey, as well as the facts for credit card payments for Entrada, out to everybody so that you should have it, especially those that are not on the call, so that they can have that information too. I do want to say one thing that's probably a misconception. In our world, we want to say, oh, our goal is to make it so no one is ever late. Horizon loves it when people pay late because that's more income. The biggest thing is making sure that they are accountable when they pay late to pay those late fees. It's kind of a tightrope that you were walking, but our favorite resident are those that pay on the 8th or 9th every single month. They pay it in full and they pay it consistently. We love those people. So thank you all for joining this call. I hope you enjoyed the Olympics at the beginning and hope you found some value with it. As always, I welcome feedback. Please let me know. Thank you so much for all your hard work. If there's anything that Help Desk or accounting can do to help you succeed in your job, let us know. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thanks, Clint.
Thank you, Clint.
Thanks, Clint.